Come on in. I'm Kate Scott. Alongside me, Arsenal legend Thierry Henry, Liverpool great Jamie Carragher, new look Slim Meeks, Micah Richards in the building. Before we do move on to today's games, first of all, the first thing we want to do is kind of revisit the events of last night in Lisbon. So let's kind of recap how this played out. In the 50th minute, Vinícius Jr scored a sensational goal to give Real Madrid the lead over Benfica. He ran over to the corner flag to celebrate in classic Brazilian samba style. That was short-lived, or the celebration was, because then he was yellow carded. Then what you saw was Benfica player Gianluca Prestianni covering his mouth with his shirt and allegedly racially abusing Vini Jr. That sparked angry scenes on the pitch and a big delay ultimately in the game. After the game did eventually restart, there were fans who threw bottles at Vini Jr when he went to take his corner. The Benfica manager Jose Mourinho and Vini Jr exchanged thoughts on the pitch, and then in an interview after the game, Mourinho criticised Vini for his goal celebration, saying it was a provocation. Since we then went off air last night, both player and club have made public statements. Let's take you through those. This is the player initially, Prestianni. He said, "I want to clarify that at no time did I direct racist insults to player Vinícius Jr, who regrettably misunderstood what he thought he heard. I was never racist with anyone, and I regret the threats I received from Real Madrid players." His club then came out and posted this statement. Benfica said, "Sport Lisboa Benfica reiterates that it fully supports and believes in the version presented by the player Gianluca Prestianni, whose conduct while serving the club has always been guided by respect for opponents, institutions, and the principles that define Benfica's identity. The club regrets the defamation campaign to which the player has been subjected." Let's talk about that reaction from the club. Is that kind of an unsurprising reaction in football culture, Thierry?
But first and foremost, I want to go back to yesterday and what I said. You could see yesterday that I reached a certain lassitude about the topic, and how it all went last night. But again, if you think about what the player said, as soon as I saw that Prestianni said what he said, obviously the club gonna back him up. If he denies what happened, the club is going to back him up. And apparently, well, not apparently, that's going to be the situation, and an investigation is going to be made by UEFA to know what happened. But I will stand with what I said yesterday. I will not change one bit what I said yesterday. I can repeat it again, but we don't have the time for that. So let's see what the investigation is gonna give us. But obviously, was I surprised with what Benfica did and say? No, because they have to be seen as going on the side that the guy that said that he's not guilty, and that's about it for me.
Yeah, same. I mean, Thierry summed it up perfectly. I think the thing for me is when he covered his mouth again. I mentioned that yesterday. It was always going to be difficult. It's going to be one word versus someone else's. So, I mean, what more can I say on the topic, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing for me was I think most people in football now are looking at the situation and looking at Benfica and thinking, oh, you've got this horribly wrong. You know, we're looking at that. But sometimes when you're inside a football club, it's almost, you know, your judgment's clouded, you back your player no matter what the situation, and even something as so serious as, you know, racism. Now, but I've been there as a player inside a football club, and we had a situation like this now, where I think the whole of football was looking at us and thinking we've got it totally wrong at Liverpool. An incident between Luis Suarez and Patrice Evra, probably 10, 15 years ago now. And it took a long time, I think, for us to inside our club to accept we got this badly wrong. And Thierry just mentioned there'll be an investigation. There was an investigation then at that time, and obviously it came out, about what Louis had said. And I was on a TV show with Patrice Evra, as I said, a good few years later, and apologised that we as a football club had got this totally wrong. And I think, the club followed suit as well a few weeks later around that. And if there is an investigation, hopefully there is, and we can get to the bottom of it. I think most of us, feel where, what happened last night was really unjust to obviously Vinny Jr. And if there is an investigation, I just hope in time that Benfica, Jose Mourinho, people around that club can apologise if we feel the accusation is right, but also, realise some of the things they got involved in themselves, putting a tweet out hours after, looking who spoke to our player, just trying to really question the validity of the Vinny Jr. and the Real Madrid players as being poor. And hopefully, as I said, if it comes out the way we all think is what happened, is, as I said, they apologise.
Well, I guess today is a new day in football, but with the same old racist problems. And whilst we do want to focus on the games ahead today, because the game is what we love, yesterday does still linger. And whether or not you like Vinny Jr., that shouldn't shape your opinion on this incident. And which team you support, it shouldn't affect which side of the story that you fall on. This isn't Real Madrid versus Benfica. It is right versus wrong. Vinny Jr. and Kylian Mbappe said that there was repeated racial abuse. Gianluca Prestianni said they misheard. But he covered his mouth to hide what he said from the cameras. And hopefully we can all agree that if what you're saying on a football pitch is shameful enough to have to hide it from the public, then you're wrong. In any case, racial abuse is not new in this game, that's for sure. In decades gone by, Cyril Regis, Howard Gale, Viv Anderson and John Barnes, to name just a few who played in this country, dealt with continued and horrific racial abuse to pave a path for players of Vinny's generation to play and celebrate without shackles. Except in 2026, that still doesn't always apply. They are still expected, as Vinny Jr. was last night, to rise above it, to answer by performance, to shut up and play. Jose Mourinho is an iconic figure in world football. Yesterday, he switched the focus from what had actually been said to whether there was provocation for it. He essentially told us that Vinny Jr. was asking for it. That is a damaging narrative from a man who is considered a leading figure in the global game. Football governance struggles globally with racial diversity at its top executive levels, as do UEFA. But we do hope that the lack of black voices in the room will not mean that black players continue to go unprotected. Investigation and due process will have to occur. But whatever the result of that in this case, we hope that football becomes a better platform where hatred is met with more than nominal fines and partial stadium closures, where diversity is truly celebrated, not just tolerated or abused with shirts over mouths. The racial diversity on a football pitch in the Champions League is the representation of the global love for this game and the global belonging in this game. This is the very spirit of football. And if you don't agree, then respectfully, you are the one who doesn't belong. When we come back, we're going to go back to the game and to tonight's action. We'll be back in a couple.